Welcome back to the deep dive. We're here to basically distill the core software that runs our social lives, rhetoric.
That's right. And if you're facing, say, a critical meeting, or you're hoping to win a tough debate, or maybe just get better at influencing people generally,
Then you're definitely in the right place for a shortcut. We're digging into a whole stack of notes and research today.
yeah, our deep dive is all about those foundational tools of persuasion. We want to go way beyond just simple logic.
Right. We're looking at the patterns, the techniques that let some people, navigate conflict and actually drive conversations towards useful decisions.
Towards agreement, really.
Okay, so let's maybe start with a great example from the source material. It's pretty relatable. A father sees an empty toothpaste tube, classic scenario, and he yells, "George, who used all the toothpaste and left this catastrophe?"
Okay, perfect snapshot. That's an argument, or maybe a fight, stuck entirely in the past. It's forensic. It's about blame.
Exactly. But George, the teenager, does something amazing. He replies, "That's not the point, is it, Dad? The point is how we're going to keep this from happening again."
And that move?
Yep.
Wow, that's the height of persuasion right there. Instantly, George does three things.
Okay, what are they?
First, he shifts from blame to choice. Second, he redirects from pure emotion, like Dad's anger, towards intellect, towards problem solving.
And third.
And this is the big one. He forces the whole conversation into the future tense. That control over the tense, that's probably the single most crucial tool in rhetoric.
I love that. So, okay, let's make that our core framework then, tense and goals. Because we often mix up arguing and fighting, don't we?
We absolutely do. And the sources are really clear. They have totally different names.
A fight. Like the source mentions Dick Cheney yelling at Senator Leahy, or even kids squabbling over space in the backseat.
Yeah, that's about domination. Or making the other person back down, maybe seek revenge later. It's about winning over them.
But an argument, in the rhetorical sense, it's different. It's trying to persuade an audience, get to some kind of consensus.
Think George Foreman selling his grill. He's not trying to beat you up. He's trying to get you to agree that you need one. Or even Mariah Carey singing to an ex.
She's trying to move them, persuade them emotionally.
Exactly. And this isn't just, armchair theorizing. John Gottman's research, the Love Lab stuff,
Oh yeah, fascinating work.
it confirmed this. Successful couples, the ones who stayed together, they argued just as much as the couples who divorced.
But how they argued was different.
Totally different. The successful ones were always aiming for agreement, for resolution, not just to win the point or dominate the other person. It lines up perfectly with these rhetorical principles.
So Aristotle's big secret then. Control the tense, control the argument, avoid the fight.
Precisely. He lays out three main categories, all tied to time. First up, the past tense. That's forensic rhetoric.
Like George's dad in the toothpaste.
Exactly. It's all about blame, justice, figuring out who didn't think law and order. And if you, listening, find yourself stuck in that loop with someone, a partner, a colleague, just constantly pointing fingers about the past.
You're basically replaying those doomed marriages from Gottman's study.
You really are. It leads to punishment, not progress.
Okay, what's next?
The present tense, or demonstrative rhetoric, this is about values. Praise and blame. It's tribal talk.
Like, that's wrong, or we stand for this, or you're a great American.
Yeah. It's great for, firing up your base, uniting a group around shared values, or giving a moving eulogy, but it's terrible for making joint decisions.
Why is that?
Because it cements things. It focuses on what is or who we are right now. Values aren't really negotiable in that context. It stops you from moving towards a future choice.
Got it. Which brings us to the third one, Aristotle's favorite.
Yes, the future tense.
Okay.
Deliberative rhetoric. This is the powerhouse because it's all about choices. It helps us, and crucially our audience, figure out what's advantageous.
Advantageous for them, for the future.
That's the key. So if you feel an argument starting to spiral, getting bogged down in accusations or anger,
You pull a George.
you pull a George.
Yeah.
You consciously switch the tense. Instead of, who messed up this report, you ask, okay, how do we make sure the next report is accurate?
That shift from blame to problem solving, past to future, that's the steering wheel.
It really is. It puts you in control of the conversation's direction.
Okay, so we've got the direction set with tense.
Yeah.
Now we need the engine, the fuel. And that's the three big appeals, right? Ethos, pathos, logos.
Exactly. The classic trio. Logos is logic, the appeal to the brain. Pathos is emotion, appealing to the heart.
And ethos.
Ethos is argument by character. Your credibility, your personality, your trustworthiness, your reputation. And honestly, it's arguably the most potent of the three.
Why do you say that?
Because if the audience doesn't trust you or doesn't feel you get them, the best logic or the most moving story might just fall flat. Ethos is the foundation.
So how do you build ethos? The sources mention virtue, practical wisdom, and disinterest. But the one that seems trickiest is decorum, fitting in.
Ah, decorum, yes. It's the art of matching your audience's expectations, their expectations for tone, appearance, manners, how they think someone credible should act in that situation.
Even if it feels a bit put on.
Well, yeah, because the core finding is you cannot be indecorous and persuasive at the same time. It just doesn't compute for the audience.
So showing up to a super formal board meeting in, like, ripped jeans and a t-shirt.
Instantly undermines your credibility no matter how smart your proposal is. The sources say the ultimate fashion crime isn't dressing poorly, it's dressing like you don't understand the room, like you're wearing your teenager's clothes.
But hang on, what about, say, a politician who deliberately wears a folksy outfit to connect with a certain crowd? Isn't that breaking decorum?
Good question. No, that's actually nailing decorum for that specific audience. They're conforming to the expectations of the group they want to persuade.
Okay, so decorum isn't about some universal standard. It's about matching the audience you're trying to reach.
Precisely. You persuade people only insofar as you identify your ways with theirs. You meet them where they are.
Makes sense. Another tool for ethos mentioned is disinterest, appearing selfless.
Right. It's the appearance of having nothing personal at stake, just the audience's best interests at heart.
And a tactic for that is the reluctant conclusion.
Yeah, that's a good one. You frame your proposal like you didn't want to arrive at this conclusion. You were maybe even skeptical yourself, but the evidence, the data, it just became overwhelming.
So you sound objective, forced into it by the facts, not by personal gain.
Exactly. It makes you seem fair-minded and trustworthy. Very useful in team settings, like you said.
Okay, let's shift gears to pathos. Emotion. People often think this means being loud or dramatic.
Yeah, a common mistake. But the sources really emphasize that the best way to shift an audience's mood is through storytelling.
Not shouting, but telling a vivid story.
A vivid, detailed narrative. Something that lets the audience have a kind of vicarious experience, makes them feel like, wow, that could happen to me.
Like the example of the neighbor calling the Boy Scouts fascists on Halloween.
Perfect example. The specifics, Halloween night, the neighbor, the uniforms, that's what creates the emotional reaction, the outrage, not just a vague accusation. The detail makes it feel real.
And critically, the advice is to control the volume. Understate it.
Yes, emotional volume control. Less is more. People experiencing strong emotions rarely use super elaborate language. They're often quieter, more direct.
So you understate the emotion in your delivery.
And you let the audience feel it more strongly themselves. Let them amplify it internally.
Like Daniel Webster's famous speech about Dartmouth College.
Exactly. He spoke quietly, almost choked up, and Chief Justice John Marshall reportedly wept. If Webster had been shouting and ranting, Marshall likely would have just tuned him out or gotten defensive. Understatement draws people in.
Fascinating. Okay, finally, logos. Logic. The appeal to the brain.
The rational stuff. But even here, rhetoric has its own tools. One really elegant one is concession.
Rhetorical jujitsu.
That's the term. You agree with a part of your opponent's argument, find some common ground.
And then use that agreement to pivot and make your own point, maybe even undermine theirs.
Precisely. You use their momentum against them. It's disarming.
And the core structure of rhetorical logic is often the enthymeme.
Aristotle's favorite. It's like a streamlined syllogism, a logic sandwich, the source calls it.
Right. A choice linked to a commonplace.
Exactly. A commonplace is just any shared belief, value, or cliche your audience already accepts without question.
Like time is money.
Perfect example. So your end theme might be, we should hire interns, the choice, because interns will free up our senior staff's valuable time, the commonplace.
You haven't proven interns are cost-effective overall, but you've linked the action directly to something they already believe deeply.
That's the power. Commonplaces like buying in bulk saves money, or family comes first, or we need to innovate. These are the starting points your audience accepts. You find their commonplaces and build your argument from there.
Which leads us neatly into defense. What happens when the logic or the facts aren't on your side?
Then you need to shift the argument itself. The main tool is controlling the definition, or what rhetoric calls stance.
Okay, stance. What is that?
It's like a fallback plan, a hierarchy. 4 steps. First, you argue the facts if the facts are against you.
Then what?
You move to definition. Redefine the terms of the debate. Okay, maybe that happened, but was it really insubordination or just miscommunication?
Clever. And if redefining doesn't work?
You challenge the quality. All right, maybe it was insubordination, but was it really that serious? Does it warrant this reaction? You downplay the impact.
And the last resort.
Relevance. Fine, maybe it was serious insubordination, but is that even relevant to deciding on next year's budget? Let's focus on the real issue here. You try to make the whole damaging point seem beside the point.
That's a pretty comprehensive defensive playbook. And within that, there's definition judo.
Right, that falls under definition. It's about using contrasting terms. If your competitor calls their magazine professional,
You call yours fun or engaging.
exactly. You make their term sound boring or stuffy by comparison, you control the frame.
Defense also means spotting bad logic in others, right? The fallacies or 7 deadly sins.
Absolutely essential. Even if rhetoric sometimes bends the rules, you need to recognize flawed logic to defend against it. Let's hit a few key ones. Tautology.
That's the circular argument.
Yeah. We need to win because winning is the most important thing. The reason just repeats the claim.
It sounds emphatic, but it doesn't actually prove anything.
Nothing at all. It just reinforces an existing belief. Very common, very hollow.
Okay, another one. Reductio ad absurdum.
Reducing the opponent's argument to a ridiculous, absurd extreme. The classic parent line, oh, so if all your friends jumped off a cliff, you'd do it too.
Right. Takes a reasonable idea and pushes it somewhere nonsensical.
Then there's the red herring. Switching the topic mid-argument to distract.
The Chewbacca defense.
That's the pop culture name for it,
Okay.
yeah. Like Johnny Cochran making the OJ trial all about a glove that didn't seem to fit.
Distracting from everything else.
It pulls the audience's attention away from the core issue onto something irrelevant, but maybe more engaging or confusing.
Okay, besides fallacies, there are also outright rhetorical fouls. Things that just shut down productive argument.
Yeah, these kill deliberation.
Yeah.
The big one is switching tenses away from the future, back to blame or tribalism, but also, crucially, threatening.
Argumentum ad baculum. Argument by the stick.
Right. If you resort to threats, you're denying the audience choice. It's coercion, not persuasion. Argument over.
And humiliation, like innuendo.
Definitely a foul. Innuendo is nasty. Planting a negative idea by denying it. Look, I'm not saying Sarah is lazy, but her projects are always late.
Ugh. It plants the seed while giving you deniability.
Exactly. It's purely about tearing someone down, not reaching a shared decision. Kills collaboration.
So we've covered the tools, the appeals, the defenses. Now, what about timing? That seems critical. Kairos.
Kairos, yes. The art of the opportune moment. Finding the right time, the right place, the right medium to make your argument. It's about sensing persuadability.
How do you spot that moment?
The sources suggest looking for uncertainty. When the audience seems unsure, maybe a little confused, maybe dissatisfied with the current situation, that's when minds are open to change.
So strategically, you don't jump in with your big solution right at the start of a debate.
Often, no. Kairos might mean waiting. Let the initial arguments based on blame or values kind of fizzle out. Let people see the current approach isn't working.
And then when they're looking for a way out.
That's your moment. Step in with your future tense, deliberative solution that offers an advantageous path forward. The timing makes it much more likely to land.
And the medium matters, too. This part was really interesting, how different senses connect to persuasion.
Hugely important. Each sense has a different rhetorical weight. Sound, like the spoken word, is actually the most connected to logos, to reason.
More than sight.
Yeah, sight is more about pathos, emotion, and ethos character. Think of a visually stunning movie or a charismatic leader's appearance.
Okay. And smell, taste, touch.
Almost purely pathos, very primal emotional responses.
What about reading? Like text or email?
That's surprisingly closer to sound than sight. It carries logos and ethos pretty well, which explains a common problem.
Why emails are terrible for emotional conversations.
Exactly. You try to convey complex feelings like anger or sadness in text, but the medium is mostly geared for logic. The emotion just sits there, kind of inert or maybe explosive, without the nuances of voice or presence.
It lacks the pathos chanter.
Right. And that's why, say, a Jumbotron marriage proposal often feels off. It's big on sight, pathos ethos, but asking someone to make a life-altering decision usually demands the depth and logic, logos, of face-to-face conversation, using sound.
Wow. Okay, so this deep dive has given us a serious toolkit.
Yeah.
Controlling the tense, using the 3 appeals effectively, understanding kairos.
And remembering that the best rhetoric often hides its own art. It's not about flashy tricks, it's genuinely about reaching agreement, moving people to want to do what you're suggesting.
It's about connection and consensus, not just winning for winning's sake.
That's the goal, which means you have to be willing to actually engage to use these tools in deliberation.
And that brings us to a final thought, something provocative from the sources about engagement. The ancient Greeks had a specific word for someone who completely avoided public life, who lived only privately.
They called that person an idiot. It's the root of our word idiot. Not necessarily meaning stupid, but uninvolved, self-contained.
So we've just spent this time unpacking all these powerful tools for persuasion, for building consensus, for engaging in public discourse.
The question to leave everyone with is, what happens to us and to our communities if we learn all these tools but only choose to use them for purely private games, selling our own stuff, winning arguments at home, and we neglect to use them for public deliberation, for tackling shared challenges together?
Fun to definitely think about. Thanks for diving deep with us today.